Downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast with your host, Andrew T. Evans, with special guest, Chris Stefanick.
You ready to rock?
I'm ready to rock.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of the Buckeye Leafcast special Cotton Bowl recap with your hosts. I am Andy Evans, and of course, the man, not a myth, definitely a legend, the Intergalactic Buckeye Fan all over the friggin' place. Gonna bring us a big OSU win recap. I'm talking about your man, my man, the Intergalactic Buckeye Fan himself, Mr. Chris Stefanick.
Andy, 12-2, buddy.
Woo!
12-2. Not bad.
Buckeyes win in big fashion, 24-7 over the 8th-ranked USC Trojans Friday night in the 82nd Cotton Bowl. And Chris, like you said, the Buckeyes end the year 12-2, Big Ten champs, huge victories throughout the year. They ended a 7-game win streak that the Trojans held over the Buckeyes. Buckeyes able to do something they hadn't done since the 1974 friggin' Rose Bowl, Chris. 44 years almost, and that was beat USC. How good does this feel to you, Chris? I'm ecstatic. I love it. I think after what happened in that Iowa game, the way the Buckeyes responded and ended the year was nothing short of awesome, and this was a great way to cap an otherwise what some people may deem as a disappointing season because they didn't get into the playoff. But me, Chris, this was a great Cotton Bowl win, a great victory for Ohio State, and quite frankly, Chris, if it weren't for the defense, this game, I mean, Ohio State may have still won this football game, but boy, oh boy, offense was just non-existent virtually from the Buckeyes.
Yeah. I mean, if I would have told you going into the game that USC would get 413 yards to Ohio State's 277.
Yeah.
Not quite double, but, closer to double than straight up, than even, right?
Right.
23 first downs to 13, 35 minutes time of possession to 25. This was an interesting one. 81 plays to 55. 55 plays, Andy.
Unbelievable.
There's games where they had 90 or even I think one game they almost had 100. 55 plays versus 81. Yeah. So that's more than 50. That's about what, 60% more? Something. It's more than 50% more plays than Ohio State.
Yeah.
So crazy. I would have thought they got ran out of town on the rail. And like you said, an offense non-existent. The defense gave Ohio State 21 points.
Oh yeah.
So basically, if the defense didn't do that, we're looking at a 7-3 loss. And I guess first of all, the defense was just amazing. That's probably the big story. It was just amazing. Basically shut out USC because if you recall, the one touchdown was on a muffed punt where USC just had to go 15 yards to get a touchdown. So that's completely on the special teams. It's not on the defense.
Yep.
And versus a team that was number 11 in the country in offense coming in.
Yeah.
Versus an NFL possibly number 1 overall pick in the draft quarterback versus an NFL running back versus 2 NFL wide receivers. These were NFL guys across the board. I mean, the offensive line was maybe not the best offensive line that Ohio State played this year. Well, definitely not. There's no maybes about that. There's a couple offensive lines they played that were better than USC's, but some serious players, some serious talent out there, and minus their number 1 cornerback, their shutdown cornerback. He was probably, literally, I'm sitting here, I'm thinking, who would be harder to replace on this team than Denzel Ward? Because the drop off from him to the number 2 guy, which I guess Sheffield or Arnett.
One of the two, yeah.
Yeah, the drop off from Ward to them it's like a cliff, right? Where, the drop off from let's say JT to Haskins is almost non-existent. Some would argue it's an improvement. Nick Bosa is probably the best player in the team, but if he leaves, the drop off from him, that means I guess Chase Young is in the rotation. I don't know. I still haven't seen a guy block Chase Young yet this year. I'm like, there's, it's like who else is more irreplaceable than Denzel Ward? And they did it without him. So, I mean, I don't know. What was your thoughts on the defense?
Like I said, if it weren't for the defense, Ohio State may still win this game. Maybe not. It could have been a 7-3 ball game. USC, I mean, like you said, the defense, I mean, solely responsible for one touchdown. Damon Webb with a pick six. They caused that fumble early in the game that set them up with a short field, which they went in and scored on, and then another fumble that set them up with a fairly short field, and JT had that nice run for the touchdown, and 24/7 ball game at the half, and if it weren't for the defense, Chris, I mean, just unbelievable. 8 sacks, setting a OSU bowl record. 8 sacks. They had 14 tackles for loss. That one interception that Damon Webb had, but he made it count for a touchdown. They had 6 pass breakups. They were in Sam Darnold's face all night long. I mean, USC and Sam Darnold at one point, seriously, I don't think he knew whether to shit or wind his watch. He was just getting that flustered throughout the game. I mean, if it were not for Ohio State's defense, they either win the game 10-7 or they may have lost 7-3. I mean, it was just that unbelievable of a performance that OSU came out. They had a goal, an objective, and that defensive front was just on fire all night long. You mentioned Chase Young. He had 1 tackle all night long, and that came late in the game. But guess what? It was for a sack. So, I mean, it was just unbelievable to watch this defense play. I was just absolutely wholeheartely impressed with their performance.
Right. And, here's one thing I will say about the offense. They got up, what was it, 17-7? And then 24-7.
Yeah.
So 14, 7. Well, 17 to what was it? 17 to nothing, then 17-7, then 24-7. Is that how the sequence went?
Let me see here.
It was something like that.
Actually, no, it was 24-0. And then
it was 24-0.
Yeah, and then with less than 2 minutes to go in the first half is when USC scored their only touchdown.
All right, so this game, Meyer was so Tressel-like in this game. I'm not so sure that it was a case that USC just shut down Ohio State's offense and more that Urban Meyer shut down the offense. I mean, honestly, do you remember a time in the game when they ran it? I'm sorry, when they passed it on first down?
Not often.
I got to one point in the game where it was maybe around the second quarter, maybe early third quarter, where I was like, I don't know that they passed the ball once on first down yet. And I wasn't paying that close of attention, but at that point I started noticing it. So from there out, I was paying attention, and they did not the rest of the game. And it was literally, I think maybe late second quarter, early third quarter. They did not pass it one single time on first down. And I'm sitting here and I'm watching this, and I'm like, I really think that Urban, he got up 24-0 and was like, I'm not going to lose this game. I'm going to make USC beat us. And they just went ultra conservative. I remember this many times when Tressel would get up by 3 scores. I mean, you might not see another pass the entire game. He would literally run, punt. It would be third and 13, because they'd totally stuff him in the backfield the first 2 runs because they knew he was going to run it. You're like, okay, surely on 3rd and 13, 3rd and 11, Tressell's going to pass it. Nope, run up the middle. It's like, oh my God, he was not going to lose a game. He was playing not to lose. And I think I've got to believe that's what Meyer was doing because the play calling, I mean, they passed it 17 times, Andy. 17 times.
I know.
17.
And I think it was because, quite frankly, USC was putting some pressure on Barrett. I mean, and they were playing some great defense there in the secondary. And I think Urban saw that and said, okay, we're having trouble throwing the ball right now. Let's just run it. Why not? Let's just try to run it. And at this point, their offense isn't doing much. So he knew that Ohio State's defense was more than likely going to continue to be able to shut down their offense.
Right. Yeah, and you bring up a good point. Not a good game by the wide receivers. So one of the cool things about the Cotton Bowl, and it's awesome that they do this, I'd like to start seeing this with all the games, is they had the All-22 film. You could go to like alternate channels and watch the All-22. So if people aren't familiar with what that is, it will show you essentially the whole field. So you can actually see what the wide receivers are doing, who's getting open, if they're covered. Where if you're watching just the regular show, it's like the camera's right on the ball the whole time. And you have no idea what anybody else is doing, right? So you can't really tell what plays were called, and again, especially if wide receivers are getting open. For whatever reason, I did not watch the All-22. I probably should have.
I didn't watch it either.
Yeah, here's what I heard, but one person, I was listening to a commentator recapping the game, and he said he had two TVs on. He had the main show on so he could listen to the commentators, while at the same time the primary screen he was watching was the All-22. So that way he had the best of both worlds. He got to see the All-22 but actually hear the commentators. That's not a bad way to do it. But at any rate, again, I didn't watch it, but listening to somebody who did, he said the wide receivers weren't getting open the whole game. So that might be, like you said, Urban's like, you know what, we're up 24-0. Our defense is completely shutting them down. They cannot block our defensive line. Our wide receivers are not getting open. Screw it. I'm just going to run the ball. And not only I'm just going to run the ball, but I'm going to run it with my quarterback who I trust the most. Again, JT led all ball carriers, all runners in carries. And, I've talked about this a lot on this show. If you look at the losses Ohio State has had over the last 3 years, and every single loss, JT led the team in carries.
Yep. And
while this was not a loss, this was a game where the offense was abysmal, where, if it were up to the offense, we would have lost handily. And JT led the team in carries. So there's a serious trend there. It's not, at this point, it's not just a fluke thing. When JT leads the team in carries, the offense is bad. And for whatever reason, it's Urban Meyer's security blanket. But it tells me that's his conservative play. That's it didn't matter. It'd be third, twice. It was 3rd and 1. And do you go to your power back, and Mike Weber? No, you have your quarterback, JT, run it up the middle and get stuffed. And oh my God, speaking of third downs and how bad the offense was, third downs, holy crap. What were they 2 for 17? Let me see. I got this written down somewhere.
2 for 12.
2 for 12.
12, yeah.
Oh my God. Again, if I just told you one stat, Andy, I've got a crystal ball, and I'm going to tell you Ohio State's going to go 2 for 12 on 13 in this game, you'd be crapping your pants. You'd be like, oh my God, this is ugly. We're going to lose so bad,
Exactly. Yeah, if you told me that Sam Darnold came out and threw for 356 yards, his main receiver, Deontay Burnett, had 12 catches for 139 yards. USC rolled up 413 total yards to Ohio State's 277. USC went 6 for 19 on third down and held Ohio State to 2 of 12 on third down. Yeah, I would have told you, all right, how bad did they lose? 2 touchdowns, maybe 3 touchdowns. No. Yeah, this was an anomaly as far as stats were concerned. Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Well, the one thing we haven't put a big emphasis on is the turnovers were obviously huge.
Huge.
USC with 4 turnovers, 21 points, leading directly to 21 points.
Yep.
And Ohio State with a turnover leading directly to 7 points. So it's only, 3 points were scored the entire game that weren't the result of turnovers. So it's.
Yeah. Ohio State's one drive, they got the field goal on. That was it.
Right. Yeah, and, and the other thing we talked about as well, while how great it was that Ohio State's defense shut down what was an elite offense, filled with NFL guys. Equal as awesome as that was, it's balanced out by the equally depressing Ohio State's offense getting shut down by a very mediocre USC defense. They were 77 in the country, Andy.
Yeah, I know.
Defense.
I know.
77. Well, what the hell?
The one thing with USC's defense that I was a little nervous about was the fact that they were a very high risk reward kind of defense, kind of an all or nothing, a lot of interceptions, second in the country overall with 43 sacks, So I knew that this was kind of like a defense where they bended a lot and they gave up a lot of points and yards, but it was still a good defense, but it was just very high risk reward. And I'm not shocked, honestly, that USC's defense did come out and gave Ohio State a hard time. But I am a little bit because of the fact that Ohio State's offense was so high-powered. I mean, Chris, I am actually surprised that the final score was 24-7. I mean, I predicted, and I kept telling people all week long, high-scoring affair. It's going to be a shootout. You're going to see these two offenses just going at it, tit for tat. They're going to be just flinging the ball all over the place, and it's going to be just an unbelievable offensive explosion. It's going to come down to the wire, a field goal or maybe a last-second touchdown. And quite frankly, if you went to bed after the first half, you woke up in the morning, you didn't miss anything in the second half. I mean, you missed absolutely nothing in that second half. I mean, it was so defensively dominated on both sides of the ball, and OSU's defense was just more dominating. So I am actually a little surprised that USC's defense did kind of handle JT Barrett, but in a way I'm not, because once again, a high-risk reward defense, and they definitely did a good job in covering the Ohio State's receivers. I mean, USC had speed on that field too, But, to your point, just crazy that here's a USC defense that you do look at the stats, and they're 77th overall defense in the country, and you go, okay, Ohio State's what, the 6th ranked total offense in the country? Oh my God, they're just going to put up all sorts of crazy numbers on them, and it just didn't happen.
Yeah. I mean, USC knew what to do to stop Ohio State.
Yep.
Urban Meyer did nothing to adjust. He just packed it in. He's like, I'm just going to play conservative. I'm not going to lose this game. And, I mean, on one hand, it worked. Yeah, on one hand, it's like, you're sitting here like, hey, this would have been pretty cool to, like, because they honestly could have beat them like 50-something to 7, right? I mean, I think they could have easily, if the offense just does, I mean, look, they gave up like, 40-something to Notre Dame, USC. This is not a good defense. If USC just has like their typical game versus Ohio State, gives up like their average points. They're blowing them out of the water, right? When you add in the turnovers, the 21 points off of turnovers. So I mean, it's a horrible blowout loss for USC, but on the other hand, they didn't commit those mistakes because they upped the conservative play calling and got out of there with a really solid win. A win that is being looked on very favorably around the country. It also doesn't hurt that the Big Ten right now is 7-0 in bowl games. And, people right now are like, hey, USC is not in the same class as Ohio State. That's everything I'm hearing when I talk to people, especially like that are not Buckeye fans. When I talk to Buckeye fans, they're like, oh my God, the offense. But when I talk to people who are not Buckeye fans, they're like, yeah, it was pretty clear to me that USC was not even in the same stratosphere as OSU. And they're like, oh, by the way, look, Big Ten 7-0 in bowl games, and the Pac-12 is what, like 1-7 or something? I mean, the Pac-12.
I think they've won. Yeah, I think they've won like one game. Yeah.
So, I mean, the Big Ten is putting its the argument out there that they're the best conference in the country right now. And they had 2 teams just missed the playoffs at 5 and 6, and both of them won. So they're bowl games, and and I think that the argument could have been made even last year that the Big Ten overall was the best conference. So they just didn't have at the top end that level of team like an Alabama or Clemson. I think the SEC right now is 1-3 or something. There's a lot of big games to go yet for the SEC. Their biggest games are yet to go, but top to bottom, it's looking like Ohio State. The Big Ten is the top conference out there right now, and maybe at the top there's some other conferences that are better. I mean, Clemson. I would be scared to think if USC's defense was doing that to Ohio State, what Clemson's defense would do, because maybe the playoff committee did Ohio State a favor by leaving them out. If that was going to be the offensive game plan going in, but yeah, I mean, right now this is looking very favorably. And if you are one of these believers that Dwayne Haskins is going to turn the offense around because it's going to take that quarterback run out of Urban Meyer's hands, he's not going to run Dwayne Haskins 13 times a game. The future's pretty bright. I think that next year the offense could step up, and I don't see anybody leaving that's irreplaceable except for maybe Denzel Ward. And here's another interesting point. Sorry to be all over the place. I swear to God, I'll give you a chance to talk in a second here.
Hey, I'm just listening to the Intergalactic Buckeye Fan, baby. I love it. Keep talking.
Another thing that's interesting, as far as next year goes around, given now that we know what the results were of the Cotton Bowl, it actually was a good thing for Ohio State that Denzel Ward set out. Because now Jeffrey Okudah, who's going to have to step into his shoes, got all those reps. I'm sure, my understanding is, Urban knew all week long that Denzel Ward was sitting out.
Oh, I'm sure he did. Absolutely.
Right. So you got all those practices for Okudah with the first string, getting all those reps, and then in game, going against NFL receivers, getting a bit of a baptism by fire there, going against NFL quarterback. That's going to pay dividends down the road for next year. So things are looking pretty good right now.
So touching on Denzel Ward here real quick, did it upset you when you heard right before kickoff that he was not going to play? Did it make you nervous? Obviously, you said now hindsight being 20/20, maybe it was actually a good thing because it gave a guy like Jeff Okudah to come in and get some great experience against a great football team. But did it kind of piss you off? Did it disappoint you when you heard that Denzel Ward was not going to play? And on now, hindsight, once again, hindsight being 20/20, can you actually not blame him for the decision that he made?
All right. First of all, I was scared shitless. I'm like, oh my God, are you kidding me?
I was too. I think everybody was, man. We're like, are you serious? Our top corner, our shutdown guy. Oh, crap.
Right. Yeah. And I'm like, my God, this team had enough problems covering wide receivers versus Iowa. They made, what was his name? Nate Stanley. He looked like the second coming of Johnny Unitas. I'm like,
oh God,
what are they going to do versus, these NFL quarterbacks and wide receivers, right? Yeah. So I was worried. Pissed off, no. To me, here's the question. So, Andy, if I said to you, okay, you have two options before you. One option, you're guaranteed to make 10 or 20 million. I don't know what he's going to make, but it's going to be something like that, right?
It's probably going to be a lot better than whatever I make right now.
Right, yeah, exactly. Well, for the sake of argument, let's say 10 million. Okay. Behind door number one, you got $10 million waiting for you.
Okay.
Behind door number two, you could play in a meaningless game and potentially walk out with $0.
Okay.
It's from a financial standpoint, if you're just looking at money, it's a no-brainer. Because he's going to be a first-round pick. What's he going to do? He's not going to improve. He basically had nowhere to go but down. There's a term in the financial investing world called the risk-reward ratio. You look at your risk versus your reward. The reward for playing was $0 because he was going to get that. He even if he comes out and plays a great game, I'd seriously doubt it changes his draft stock because he's still going to be the top cornerback taken or maybe the top 2 or 3. That wasn't going to change, and the risk was potentially that he loses it all. He has, you look at the guy from Notre Dame that blew his knee out. And
Jalen Smith.
Yeah, 2 years ago, the guy was
against Ohio State.
Yeah, he was picked to be a top 15 in the draft, top 10 in the draft, and he cost himself millions and millions of dollars. And Maynard, I don't even know how his recovery went, but if he's even going to be the same player again after that.
I think he's actually kind of tearing it up for the Cowboys right now.
Is he?
Yeah,
okay.
I think yeah.
So, but from a financial standpoint, it's a really risky thing to do. So I was not pissed at all. And here's another question for you. If he was your son, what would you tell him to do?
Oh, okay. When I heard that he wasn't going to play, like you just said, was I pooping my pants like, oh crap, Ohio State could definitely be in trouble now, because I was even worried about Sam Darnold and him being able to sling the rock all over the place with Denzel Ward playing. Now our number one corner is out. Oh man, Sam Darnold might be having a field day on Ohio State's defense. So yeah, I was actually kind of ticked off, quite frankly, because I felt, dude, Denzel Ward, I get it. I do get it. Behind door number one, you got millions of dollars, and if you risk playing in this game, I'm not going to sit here and call it a nothing game, because, quite frankly, I felt that Ohio State still had a lot to play for. Yeah, is it a national championship? No, but there was still a lot on the line as far as, at least me, from a Buckeye fan's perspective, was concerned. Denzel Ward, you get your ass in that game and you play. You know, you still have a Cotton Bowl here, a Big Six bowl game against a blue blood program in USC, somebody you haven't beaten in almost 44 years. You get your ass in that football game and you play. But that's, of course, coming from a fan's perspective that has nothing to lose either way, if he does play or if he doesn't play, or if he does play and he gets hurt. I mean, honestly, for me personally, does that affect me in my life? No, absolutely not. So it's a very selfish perspective from a Buckeye fan to expect him to go in and play. However, I can't blame him either, because, yeah, if he does play in that game and he does get hurt and that ruins his draft chances, or hell, his career in general, can I blame him for not wanting to play, not wanting to risk that huge contract that he's probably going to get for being one of, if not the top corner drafted in the class, probably a first-round pick or at least a very high second-round pick at this point? No, I can't be mad. And, you know, to your point, hindsight being 2020, the fact that OSU, their defense played the way they did, and it got Jeff Okudah some great experience, as well as Sheffield and Arnett. Those three guys, you know, all coming back next year. Great experience in this bowl game. It wasn't that big of a deal. So, you know, that's the beauty of, you know, life. After it happens, you get to look back on it and go, see, that wasn't so bad, was it? No, absolutely not. But, yeah, initially, I was actually pretty ticked off, but now looking back on it, you know, it was a win-win for everybody. Ohio State won the game. Great experience for the other three corners. Denzel Ward still going to be getting a high draft pick and making lots of money in the NFL next year. So, yeah, so that's my take on it. However, if he was my kid, I mean, what do I tell him? Hey, go out there and play, or don't play and, you know, risk your career. I mean, honestly, yeah, more than likely you're going to tell him, hey, it's your decision to make. I mean, if he was my kid, I'd look at him and say, son, it's your decision. You're a man. I respect your opinion. Whatever you feel is best for you. I don't blame you if you don't want to go out there and get hurt. However, if you want to play in the last game ever wearing an Ohio State uniform, you're an Ohio kid showing your Buckeye pride, I don't blame you for wanting to do that either. I mean, if I had to tell him one way or the other what to have done, if it was just a complete draw line in the sand decision and I was supposed to make it for him, I don't, you know, is he buying me a house or a car with all of these millions? Because if so, yeah, kid, sit your ass on the bench and don't play. You're going to be helping your old man out here with a nice fat house, you know? Right. No, quite honestly, I probably would have said, you know what? You're going to regret not playing in this bowl game, kid. Trust me, even if you do play, you're still going to get drafted, and I think it would – I think you'd feel better if you went in and played your last game ever and went out on a high note and helped them win the game. I probably would have told him to play.
Good for you. A lot of people wouldn't. I don't know that I would play if it was me. If it was my son, I don't know that I would advise him to play, especially if if you remove the scarlet and blood running through my veins, right? If you say your son never got an offer from Ohio State and instead, he's playing for Louisiana Tech or something. It's going to be a first-round draft pick. You're like, you sit out.
Oh.
You know what I mean? Because then it's like, and just sit out. But really, if you think about it that way, if your answer changes, if he's playing for Louisiana Tech than if he's playing for Ohio State, then the only reason that you're recommending him to play is because you're biased for Ohio State. It's not really what's in the best interest of your son at that point.
And you know what? That is an absolutely fair point, because if he's playing for Louisiana Tech, he's probably playing 6-6 North Texas in the Cottonelle Toilet Bowl or something. You know what I'm saying? And yeah, at that point, no, kid, trust me, sit this game out. Don't risk getting hurt against 6-6 North Texas in the Cottonelle Toilet Bowl, okay? Go ahead, sit out. You're going to be the top pick. No, absolutely. Kind of, you put it into perspective. And when you put it into that perspective, an absolutely nothing game, that's definitely a nothing bowl game right there to risk your career on. 100%. If that's the case, no, I'm telling him, trust me, sit your ass out. You're going to regret if you get into this game and get hurt. However, yes, Ohio kid, Buckeye pride, starting quarterback, for one of the best damn teams in the nation that's playing another conference champion in a prestigious bowl. Yeah, is it national championship? No, but still, the perspective on that, it is a little bit higher. And in that regard, I still tell him, I think you'd regret not playing. But yeah, Cottonelle Toilet Bowl, no, kid, you ain't playing. I don't care. I'll kidnap you and keep you at the hotel room if you want to play in this game.
Cottonelle needs to sponsor a bowl and call it the Toilet Bowl. That would be awesome. That would be I would make sure that I'd go out and buy some stock in Cottonelle after that. Yeah. You guys deserve a reward for making that bold move. That's just great.
Or how about the Roto Rooter Toilet Bowl?
Yeah, that would be great. What if we're probably beating this to death, but does the equation change if your son is playing for Wisconsin in the Orange Bowl?
Well, once again, I equate.
You're an Ohio State fan, so it's not like this is you don't really care if Wisconsin wins or loses, really. Maybe that's a bad choice because you have Big Ten pride. So let's see what's another good bowl here. He's playing for I don't know who's Auburn playing.
How about Central Florida in the Peach Bowl?
Yeah, the Peach Bowl. Would you play? Do you want your son? It's not the playoffs because it's the playoffs that changes things, right? Or
absolutely.
Or you've got he's playing for Notre Dame in the Citrus Bowl or something like that. So it's not like a junk game. It's not the Toilet Bowl, but it's not Ohio State. So you're not biased because it's just something to think about. Probably beat this one to death, but
and just to answer your question at that point, I've grown up a Buckeye fan. I wanted my son to go to Ohio State, but he felt that going to Wisconsin was a better fit for him. And I'm sure at that point, you always see parents who grew up, they'll say, oh, yeah, I was a fan of this and that team. They're interviewing the parent on the sidelines. We grew up down in the South, in the state of Florida. We were always big, Miami fans. But when he decided to come to Ohio State, I'm a Buckeye fan all the way now, rah, rah, rah. So at that point, I'm sure I probably would become a fan, if you will, of that school, at least while my son is there.
Yeah, sure.
So, and quite frankly, I equate, the Orange Bowl, Penn State, Washington in the Fiesta Bowl last night. I equate both of those because they're New Year's Six bowl games, right? Even Auburn Central Florida in the Peach Bowl, that's another New Year's Six bowl game. I mean, that's a good prestigious bowl. It's a New Year's Six game. I probably would tell him the same thing. Now, if it's, once again, you kind of you get out of the New Year's Six aspect and, okay, yeah, it's the Citrus Bowl. I guess it depends. I mean, he's playing Notre Dame. Is Notre Dame playing LSU? Is that who's playing in the Citrus Bowl? Yeah. So that's like 11 versus 17. Man, that's a tough one because, for years I remember watching, as I'm sure you do, Ohio State play in several Citrus Bowls and usually got beat against an SEC team. But, I don't know, man. That is a tough one. I guess I'd have to think about that a little more. But I'd probably say outside of the New Year's Six, don't play. Don't play. This is sort of a meaningless bowl game to get hurt on.
Gotcha.
So, but hey, there's always a lot of different perspectives. I mean, there's no black and white, when it comes to these sorts of things. When it comes to life, I firmly believe there are gray areas in everything we do, and there's always going to be a different style and perspective on things. But so let me ask you this, Chris. Now that his career is officially said and done at Ohio State, and he accomplished a ton of things during his career here. He set a number of school records, as well as Big Ten records. Where do you put a one Joseph Thomas Barrett IV all-time history at the quarterback position for Ohio State?
Okay, so let me ask a clarifying question. Are you saying if I could pick any Ohio State quarterback throughout history to start for my team, or who had the best, where would I place him as far as his career goes?
See, and that's kind of the quandary, all right? And the reason I bring this up, I had a buddy group text myself and two other buddies this same question. Where do you put JT all time? And then, of course, all four of us are all going back and forth through text, and a couple of guys are saying, yeah, he's top 10, but I wouldn't put him above, they were saying guys like, Bobby Hoying and Braxton Miller and Joe Germain and Troy Smith and, Rex Kern and Art Schlichter and, on down the line. And I said, you've got to take into account stats. Some people say that JT was just quite simply a stat whore, if you will, a stat patter, and just coming from, his game management and all those other superlatives in his game, that doesn't qualify him as being one of the best quarterbacks, or at least, not top 5 or top 3 quarterbacks of all time. I said, given everything, the stats, the things that he's got 2 Big Ten championship rings on his finger. He does have a national championship ring on his finger. Once again, set a number of school and Big Ten records. I'd have to put him at least number 3 at the very least. If not, maybe number 2 or number 1. But it can all come into debate. So I guess take it all into account, Chris. Just period. Yeah, stats, whatever. I mean, his ability to throw the football, all of that stuff. Where do you put him?
Yeah, so if I'm picking a guy in their prime to start for my team, I'm picking Troy Smith. I'm not picking JT Barrett.
Okay.
I think Troy Smith is the better quarterback. And I think if we had Troy Smith this year, a 22-year-old Troy Smith out there playing for Ohio State, it would be scary to see how good this team would have been.
I agree.
So if that's the case, Troy Smith's the best quarterback I've seen Ohio State have. And I probably would put maybe if I'm just picking a quarterback, picking second might be maybe like a Joe Germain.
Mm-hmm. See, those were the 2 guys I felt if I'm going to put ahead of JT, it probably would be Troy Smith and Joe Germain.
But at that point, JT might just be number 3. I mean, I don't know. Maybe see, the thing is with Cardale, the sample size was so small, and because Cardale, the offense has looked the best it's ever looked. Those 3 games to close out 2014 was the best I've seen any Ohio State offense ever look, especially when you factor in the quality of the competition.
And there's part of the argument, too. Right. One of the guys said, oh, well, Ohio State doesn't win that national championship if JT's in there. I'm like, well, that's unfair to say. How do you know?
Yeah, you don't.
You know what I mean?
You don't, yeah.
You can't. Right.
So it's possible, but yeah,
But that is fair to say that, yes, the offense certainly did look better under Cardale those last 3 games. Right. They went nuts, yeah.
Right. So, but given the sample size, I would probably still take JT over Cardale. If I'm looking, but on the other side, if I'm evaluating this I'm not picking the guy who's going to start for us next year. I'm just saying who's had the best career, who deserves. If you can only pick one quarterback to put in the Ohio State Hall of Fame. Who do you pick?
Oh, jeez. Oh, boy. Only one?
Who's your first choice, to go in the Ohio State Hall of Fame?
Wow.
It's hard not to say JT, given the number of wins, given the number of records. I guess he only had – this is the one thing is, like, if you're judging based on championships, he just has this year. He has the Big Ten championship this year.
That he was solely responsible for.
Right. I mean, that's it. So he's only got that. But if you're judging on wins, or like any other possible statistic, he's got it. So
yeah, I mean, he's the all-time leader in wins. He's got the most rushing yards by a quarterback, the most passing yards. He's got the most touchdowns responsible for. He is now the all-time offensive leader in the Big Ten all-time. I mean, some of this stuff, you can't deny that the numbers he put up. I mean, yeah, when you take a look, though, at JT Barrett, what's funny is that he owns all of these records, and he's probably not going to play at the next level. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's what's crazy. But still, I mean, what the guy did it really was, unbelievable. And I think because of those stats, Chris, that's why you've at least got to put him in the top 3. However, do I think there were other guys at Troy Smith and Joe Germain, primarily, that were better quarterbacks than JT? Yes, I do. I think, like you said, if I had to pick, okay, you're my starting quarterback on my all-everything OSU team. For me, it probably would come down to either Troy or Joe Germain. I go back and forth between those two because, man, Joe Germain, that one season in 1998 was just lights out.
Yeah.
I mean, he still owns the single-season passing yards record at Ohio State from that 98 season. Of course, Troy, the only Heisman Trophy-winning quarterback in not only Ohio State, but Big Ten history. And what he did in that 06 season, aside from the crappy national championship game that he had, was unbelievable there in 06. So, but yeah, I just think from a stats standpoint, you've at least got to put JT number 3. At least number 3.
Right. Yep. I hear you.
So, yeah. So there you go, sir. What else can we talk about before we jump off the microphones?
Oh, geez. Let me think about that.
Yeah, did you have anything else? I mean, because, sir, I hate to say it, but this might be our swan song for the 2017 football season, at least for, maybe a few weeks, maybe a couple months.
Yeah, we'll do one after the signing day, recap the class and see how Urban closes it out. And then we'll do one after the spring game. But yeah, you're right. I mean, there's a lot of individual performances we could talk about. Sam Hubbard going out strong.
Yeah, let's talk about Sammy Hubbard real quick.
We could talk about guys leaving early, and there's a couple guys that are on the fence right now. So that'd be an interesting thing to talk about. Or we could, shake hands and check back in February.
Well, no, you just mentioned it. There's a couple of guys that obviously we know Denzel Ward is leaving. Sam Hubbard did announce the day after the Cotton Bowl that he was going to be leaving, and we all pretty much knew that was a foregone conclusion. But after that Cotton Bowl, he had, 4 tackles, 3 solo, 2.5 sacks, 3.5 tackles for loss. Unbelievable game from him. And when he announced, no surprise whatsoever. I think we all knew that he was leaving early. But are you a little bummed out that Hubbard has decided to forego his last year?
Oh, I fully expected him to go. In fact, I was thinking he was going to go last year. So I was just happy to have him for this year because there was a lot of talk that he was going to go last year.
Yeah, exactly.
So that he came back. And him and Tyquan Lewis both. I mean, Tyquan Lewis was Defensive Lineman of the Year last year. So that he came back, that both those guys came back was opponents in my mind. So I was not bummed out. And plus, Sam Hubbard, he participated in senior tackle a few weeks back. I believe that was Michigan week. So
yes.
So I mean, it was we knew. I mean, at that point, he's gone, right? So. I'm not bummed out. It's definitely the right decision for him. In general, I think it's the right decision. If you're going to get drafted in the first 3 rounds, I think it's the right decision. And a lot of times, even if you're not, it's still the right decision. So Hubbard, no brainer. Denzel Ward, obviously no brainer. Some interesting ones. Jerome Baker. What do you think?
Here's the thing. At especially after the Iowa game. If you asked me, is he ready? I would have said, no, because it seems like he's taken a step back from the amazing sophomore season that he had. Doesn't seem like he's progressed. He's really regressed here throughout this season, or at least regressed from the standpoint where he was at the season before. However, Jerome Baker really picked it up after that Iowa game. I think something finally clicked in his head. Like, I think he was just maybe kind of going through the motions and thought, I can just kind of get by on, what I was able to do last year, and it wasn't working. And after that Iowa game, something really clicked, and he started turning it on. I mean, here's another guy that had a great Cotton Bowl. 5 tackles, 3 solo, 1.5 tackles for loss, half a sack. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes, and given the way he picked up after that Iowa game, I think he's ready. I think he's ready to go.
Well, I mean, talent-wise, athletic ability and all of that, he is the best NFL prospect Ohio State has at linebacker.
Sure.
And when he's on, he's amazing and definitely is a guy who should be going. But it's like he has good games and bad games. It's like I question if he actually likes playing football, and that it's just he has to juice himself up to play. And if he doesn't, you're liable to get a stinker game like he did versus Iowa. I mean, it was probably like half his games this year were crap, and half of them he was amazing. And fortunately, he did. You're right. He closed the season strong, which almost has me wondering, like, if somebody was telling him or like scouts and were saying, hey, you probably need to come back next year. Meanwhile, he's thinking the whole time, this is my last year. Oh, shit, I guess I actually better, try.
I better start playing.
Yeah, I better start playing. I think he's gone. I think he's a guy who always viewed himself as a 3-and-done player coming in. And the fact that he can turn it on whenever he wants to, and he decided to turn it on, the last few games tells me that he's like, okay, I probably should get my resume tightened up a little bit here. So I think he's gone. Now here's one.
What?
Go ahead.
Let's see if you – I was just going to say, let's see if you mention a guy that I haven't heard anything about, and as far as I know, did not play in the game, and is a guy that people are talking about being as a redshirt sophomore, a guy that's going to leave early. And I want to see if you're about to mention his name.
Okay, well – Mike Weber was the next name I was going to bring up, who was a redshirt sophomore.
Okay, that wasn't who I was going to say, but but no, yeah, but it's still Mike Weber. Yeah, let's talk about him.
So Mike Weber, obviously, if you look at stats, you're like, why is this guy going to leave early, right? But here's the issue: Mike Weber, redshirt sophomore, J.K. Dobbins, freshman, and is ahead of him on the depth chart. When is Mike Weber ever going to get these stats? Because even if J.K. Dobbins leaves early as a junior after his third year, Mike Weber will be a senior that year, so he's never going to get the starting job barring injuries. Obviously injuries change everything, but
sure.
So this might be as good as it gets. Meanwhile, running backs have a short shelf life, so coming out early kind of helps improve his stock because he has less miles on the tires, right? And he takes the chance of getting injured coming back for a whole season where right now he's healthy. And injuries have been a problem in his career. That was the whole reason he redshirted. He was in line to get playing time as a freshman. He redshirted because he was injured. Came out this year, was a little gimpy. And then we saw when he got healthy, it was like, oh my God, this is like a whole different player. He's got a whole nother gear as far as speed and acceleration that we didn't know he had. Which brings up another point is even though he doesn't have the stats that you'd like to have, he's going to test really well, I got to believe. Based on like the 40-yard dashes and stuff that were coming out of camp, this kid's got some wheels, and he's not a small guy. So for him to put up that kind of speed at the size that he's at, and knowing that he's probably not going to get the stats ever, I mean, barring a J.K. Dobbins injury, you could make the argument that, hey, when is your opportunity ever going to get better? The only thing you stand to gain by coming back is, an injury that like ruins your career and hurts your stock or something. You know what I mean? It's like the risk reward. Going back to that, the risk reward equation kind of has you leaning towards leaving, even though he's probably wouldn't get drafted, in the first couple days.
I think he's gone, and those are all excellent points, and that's pretty much what people are saying. And we've talked about this before, too. And, yeah, at what point, except if J.K. gets hurt, is Mike Weber going to come in and get the starting job? Now, it's kind of been a 1A, 1B kind of year, especially there at the last few games of the season when it was apparent that Mike Weber was definitely back 100% healthy. He was definitely, I'd say, getting just about as many carries as Weber was, Dobbins was. But yeah, at this point, he's still going to at least be sharing the load. He's not going to be the featured tailback in this offense next year. And, What else does he really have to stick around for, quite frankly? And like you said, risk getting hurt again because he's been continually dinged up the 2 seasons, really 3 seasons because he was kind of hurt there his redshirt freshman year. I don't think he stands to gain anything by coming back. So, I think he's gone.
Right, yeah. Yeah, I mean, you could be right. So, okay, I've got 3 guys left on my list that are on the watch list for coming back.
All right, I'm still waiting for that name.
So
I want to hear.
Only one of them is redshirt sophomore, so I'm just going to go with that, and that's Draymond Jones.
There you go. So, that's the name I was looking for.
Draymond Jones, redshirt sophomore. My understanding is the NFL scouts love him. Probably going to be like a top 2 or 3 round guy. My guess is he's probably gone because I don't know. Again, it's one of those things. How much you're going to improve your stock to come back? I don't see him being like coming back and then being a guy that goes in the top 15 of the draft. I don't see him being that kind of guy. I think he probably would be still a top, 2nd or 3rd round pick if he comes back. So my thinking is he's gone, but I'm one that always thinks the guys are gone. I just kind of default to that because for me, that's how I think. If it was me, I'd be gone. I'd be like, I'm not going to risk millions of dollars just to come back on the chance that I might improve my stock. And if you tell me I come back, I will improve my stock, then I might think about it. But it's just that you might. Plenty of guys have come back and hurt their stock coming back and without even getting injured. I mean, like Tyquan Lewis, did he do anything to help his stock? He probably didn't hurt it, but he certainly didn't help it by coming back. I mean, he probably chopped 1 year of salary off of his career, 1 year that he could have been earning in the NFL. So that's 1 year less. So one less year, he's going to have to earn money in the NFL. And he had a worse year than he did last year. So I think he's gone. So that's player one left. Your thoughts?
Well, now let me ask you this on Draymond Jones. First of all, am I crazy, or did he not play in that Cotton Bowl? I don't remember seeing him at all.
Oh my God!
And he's
God,
not
right.
on, dude. He's not on the defensive stat sheet at all.
Wow.
I don't. And nobody's saying anything about it.
You're right.
Nobody is saying anything.
You're right. I don't remember seeing him play either.
Seriously, he's not on the defensive stat sheet, and I don't remember even seeing him in the game.
Yeah, I don't either.
I think that's a sign right there. He's gone.
Yeah. Well, obviously, if he didn't play, then he's in the Cotton Bowl. Yeah, he's already mailed it in. Wow, you might be right. I don't remember seeing him play. But even if he did play, I think he's probably gone. So that's one. Next guy will be Paris Campbell. This is another guy.
Yeah.
That you look at the stat sheet and you say he should come back, but it's one of those to me where, well, one, I don't know how much he's going to improve his draft stock because he's not really a receiver. He's still not, and I don't know that next year he's going to become a receiver. I think in the NFL, he's probably just a special teams guy. He's like a kick returner, or even on like coverage teams. Like he was out there on punt coverage and kickoff coverage and stuff for Ohio State, and he's blazing fast. I mean, absolutely blazing. The NFL just love speed, and he's not a small guy at blazing fast. I mean, it's one thing if you're like 5'9", 165 pounds, 170 pounds, and you're running a 4.3. I mean, this is a big dude running what's probably going to be like a 4.3. I mean, he's just crazy fast with a good size, and I don't think coming back he's ever going to be what he is right now. I think he's a running back and a special teams guy, and he's not really going to be a running back in the NFL. He's not a running back at Ohio State. He's like a high school running back that's really freaking fast, and that's going to be what gets him in the NFL. I don't know that he has anything to gain by coming back.
Well, what's weird is I'm not sure if he necessarily has anything to gain either, but next year, I mean, he's going to have Dwayne Haskins throwing him the football, so he could have the opportunity to improve his stats and possibly his draft stock with Haskins throwing the ball. And what we are hoping as Buckeye fans and seeing a little more pass-happy rather than read-option offense, because Haskins certainly is not as much of a read-option quarterback as he is just a regular old quarterback throwing the football. So, I don't know. I mean, Paris Campbell, at this point, I think it is what it is as far as him being a receiver. I don't know, though. Maybe he does have an opportunity to come back and improve his pass-catching skills. I'm on the fence about Paris. Like you just said, I mean, he's a fourth-year guy. Does he have anything really to improve upon? Can he improve upon? I think, obviously, the speed factor, you can't teach speed, right? But you can certainly teach him, better mechanics in catching the football. But is that really going to be what he's going to be at the next level? I like you just said, I definitely see him as more of a special teams guy, returning kicks, punts, stuff like that. I'm on the fence, man. I mean, I could see him coming back maybe and getting at least one more year, padding the stats with Haskins throwing him the ball and maybe improving a little bit on his technique. But if he goes now, he's still, like you just said, the NFL loves speed and you can't teach speed. So he's definitely got that in spades right now over a lot of guys in the draft.
Yeah.
So you know what? I think he's gone too. I think he's gone.
Yeah, he's like 6'1", 210, and is going to run a 4.3. All right, it's going to be below 4.4. Let me just say that. Maybe it's not 4.30, but I bet you he runs something below 4.4.
Oh yeah,
and that's going to get him drafted for sure. So yeah, it'll be interesting. Now this last guy, I'm going to ask you if you can guess who I'm thinking of for my last guy, and I will give you a hint.
Okay.
I will give you a hint.
All right. Okay.
The hint will be if I told you last year at the end of last season that we would be having this discussion about this player. You would have thought I was crazy. That's my hint for you. Who am I thinking of?
Okay, so we said we talked Hubbard, we talked Jones, we talked Baker, we talked Campbell, we talked Weber. Johnny Dixon.
Isaiah Prince.
Oh.
Isaiah Prince.
Whoa.
Isaiah.
Okay, yeah.
So here's the
Never would have guessed that. Okay. All right.
Prototype tackle. So he's like 6'7", athletic, trim. He is if you like could go into the shop and just build the left tackle you want, he's the guy. He's a prototype. And the NFL loves prototypes. They love their prototypes. And
yes, they do. Yes, they do.
If you look at the grading, so like Pro Football Focus grades every player on every play. How they do this, I have no freaking idea, but they do it, and it's pretty awesome. So this gives you an idea. You can actually look at stats for offensive linemen. You know, did they make their block or miss it, kind of thing. They give you a grade for grades for all the offensive linemen. You actually through Pro Football Focus, you have stats for linemen. You have stats for stuff like nose tackles. That how did they grade out in the game where. The number of tackles doesn't tell you how well a nose tackle did. You know what I mean? Oh, he had 3 tackles today. That was much better than last week when he had 1. It's like, no, there's more to that. Offensive line is the same way. Isaiah Prince graded out as the number 1 offensive lineman on Ohio State's team over Billy Price, All-American, over Jamarco Jones, who's going to be drafted. Jamarco Jones is going to be drafted. He's probably going to be top 4 rounds, I'm guessing. Isaiah Prince had the highest grade on the offensive line for Ohio State. And
wow.
How many times did you see him getting beat? How many times did you sit there and like cringe? Oh, Isaiah just got abused. Because, it was like every other play last year. Think about it. I remember him getting beat once or twice early in the year where I was like, oh, here we go again. And it was like,
oh, yeah.
And then it like disappeared. Every time when I'd see a guy getting really beat badly, it would be like, Michael Jordan or Demetrius Knox or something like that. It was, I didn't even see like false starts, let alone, he was real quiet. When you're an offensive lineman, when you're quiet, when nobody's talking about you, you're doing a good job. Because that means you're not getting blown up. You're not making penalties. Isaiah Prince graded out really freaking well, and he's had 3 years at Ohio State. He could be gone. And you know what? That one would be, of all these other guys we talked about, I'm like, I really want Draymond Jones to come back because, I think that, it would be, the defensive line would be special again with Draymond back. They're losing a lot of guys on that defensive line, a lot.
Lot of guys.
But they're getting a lot of guys, some seriously talented guys back, like, not that, Nick Bosa and Chase Young are as good as anyone. And, they got some kids coming in, and we could talk about on signing day, or we already have talked about some. But at any rate, Draymond Jones would be a nice one to have back. But Draymond Jones is replaceable. Isaiah Prince, man, the depth on the offensive line is not great. And there's a ripple effect here, because what I'm hearing is next year, Isaiah Prince being your top tackle on the roster will move over to left tackle, and then you'd have guys like Brandon Bowen and Michael Pritchard, or what the hell's his name?
Malcolm Pridgeon.
Malcolm Pridgeon, that's it. I knew it wasn't right. Thayer Mumford. Those 3 guys would be, the battle royale for the right tackle spot. But if Prince is gone, now it's like it shifts everybody over. It's like, okay, now we got to find one of those guys to be the left tackle, and then the second choice, who would have been your first choice at right tackle, is now your left tackle. And who would have been your second choice at right tackle is now your starting right tackle. It's a ripple effect. And then, God forbid, somebody gets injured. You know what I mean? That would be a huge blow. And I'm just praying that he comes back.
Well, if you would have just said his name without all of those stats that you just gave out and just said, I think Isaiah Prince is gone. Yeah, dude, I'm asking you to, puff, puff, pass. Because I'm like, dude, you are nuts. There's no way Isaiah Prince is ready to go. But after listening to your argument, I think I might be jumping on the bandwagon. I'm not – I totally get what you're saying. I think he needs one more year. But, yeah, the kid's a junior, and you're right. improved remarkably this season from last year. I mean, last year, yeah, he was a pillow. And this year, he's definitely turned it around and looks. He made a vast improvement. Because they're losing. Obviously, Jamarco Jones and Billy Price are gone. You're getting Michael Jordan back for one more year at least. Demetrius Knox, he ain't leaving early. So at this point, if they lose Isaiah Prince, you're right. That might create some issues here on the offensive line. I mean, luckily, they do have some guys that are talented enough that can hopefully step up and do just as good of a job. You mentioned Brandon Bowen. Let's hope he comes back and is healthy after his season-ending injury. A guy like Thayer Munford. You've got Matthew Burrell, Wyatt Davis. The freshman phenom there that is actually listed on the depth chart at right guard. Josh Myers, another guy. But certainly the depth is not all that outstanding for this offensive line. And losing a guy like Isaiah Prince probably would hurt, and would probably hurt worse than a lot of Buckeye fans, were probably thinking about. So that was not a name I was expecting you to hear, but dude, you made some great points, and I'm with you. Now I'm kind of actually scared if we lose Isaiah Prince. I don't think he's going. I think he's coming back, but let's hope that's the case.
Right. Well, you mentioned a lot of names for bodies. Like the thing is, most of those guys are guards. That's the thing. It's like, Wyatt Davis looks. Everything we're hearing is Wyatt Davis is a future star. Josh Myers was one of the best offensive linemen.
Hey, you know what? You're breaking up really bad.
All right, let's try this again. Is this any better? How about now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so Wyatt Davis. Everything we're hearing is that guy's a future star. Josh Myers was like the best offensive lineman to come out of Ohio since Orlando Pace, is what they were saying. But they're guards. That's the thing. They're guards, Brandon Bowen. Yeah. Brandon Bowen's a guard. He had the starting right guard spot until he went down. Can he play tackle? Sure. I mean, he's like 6'8" or 6'7". I'm sure they could put him out there, but it's not the same. You got to have really good feet. The moves you make they are a lot different than playing on the inside. The players you're playing against are a lot different. You're going. Sure. It's a lot different blocking defensive ends than it is defensive tackles. So, here's hoping. I just, at this point, I won't be shocked if he goes. Let me just say that I'm praying, I'm whatever it takes, twirling the appropriate number of chickens over my head to complete the ritual that he comes back. But it's on the table. It is a possibility. I mean, if Jalen Marshall can go, Isaiah Prince can certainly go.
Jalen Marshall, can go, then maybe you or I could go into the NFL draft. I mean, maybe that's a little over the top, but no, you're right. Yeah, that's excellent points, and I think he comes back, but certainly let's hope he does.
Yeah.
Because that would leave some holes there on the offensive line to fill, and like you said, the depth is not the greatest. I mean, they got guys, they definitely got the depth, if you will, but is it talented depth?
Right.
We need to see something out of guys like Wyatt Davis and Josh Myers, and what about guys like Kevin Fetter, Brady Taylor? I mean, this 2015 recruiting class, who these kids are now redshirt sophomores and juniors, the Matthew Burrells of the world. These guys, they need to step up here, and let's see what they got.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, sir, what else can we talk about, or have we exhausted all football talking points at this point?
Oh, we've absolutely not exhausted all football talking points, but I think it's probably time to close this one up.
Yeah, I think if people haven't shut this podcast off by now, I give them credit for hanging in, because this has been a long one, but it's been a good one, sir. It's been one hell of a swan song here to close out another great OSU football season, talking with you about all this stuff. And, yeah, I know we're going to be talking some more shop here very soon in the near future. But, yeah, this is it. This is kind of the last official podcast of the official 2017 football season, sir. And once again, it's been a hell of a ride, brother. And I can't imagine doing this with anybody else but you, man. It's been it was a great way to end the season with a Cotton Bowl, and I'm like I said, couldn't imagine doing it with anybody else than you, the Intergalactic Buckeye fan himself.
Man, it's been fun, and this was a really good season. So it was a good season for you and me. We definitely had an All-American performance. And it was a pretty good performance for the Buckeyes as well. It was looking grim there after that trip to Iowa City, but they turned it around and did pretty much as good as we could possibly have expected them to do after that. So,
hey, absolutely, Chris. Once again, we got to talk about some great historic wins in Ohio State history. We've been doing this now. This is our 4th season, and when we started, can you imagine this, dude? When we started, JT Barrett was a redshirt freshman, and we were talking about, oh crap, Braxton Miller's going down. That was our first season. Yeah. This whole podcast has been all JT Barrett this whole time. Oh my
God, you're right. Yeah, this has been the JT Barrett cast.
Yeah. So next year, we're going to finally be talking. I mean, not that we haven't talked about different quarterbacks, obviously, the whole Cardale Jones, Braxton Miller deal going on. But, yeah, next year, I mean, we're going to be focusing now on a new quarterback. So it's going to be weird to not really
You're right.
talk about JT. Yeah. Isn't that crazy?
I didn't even think about that. You're right. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Time flies, brother.
Time for something a little different.
Yeah, we're gonna be. It will be. It'll be a historic 5th season when we crank it up here. Probably, like you said, we'll finalize the recruiting signing day when they sign maybe 3 or 4 more kids. Maybe, I don't know. I know they're still in on several kids, and signing day coming up here in February. They still got a few kids to sign, and we still got some things to talk about. But until then, sir, once again, it was a hell of a ride, brother, and I appreciate all you've done. And it was another awesome season to talk about for sure.
Yep, and you as well, my friend.
So on that note, folks, we appreciate you downloading this edition of the Buckeye Leafcast. Once again, appreciate all of the people out there that have downloaded the Buckeye Leafcast and let us know how great we're doing and how awful we're doing. Whatever, any kind of feedback you have given us, we fully, wholeheartedly appreciate it. And until we crank up the recruiting finalized edition of the Buckeye Leafcast, Chris, tell the fine folks out there where they can get a little more love from Chris Stefanick.
Sure. So I do have a personal development podcast called Choice Conversations. It's at choiceconversations.com. I'm on Twitter at choiceconvo. Come check me out, and I can help you to improve your life. choiceconversations.com.
And I believe they can hit you up on Twitter at ChoiceConvo.
You got it.
And there it is. So, ladies and gentlemen, he is the Intergalactic Buckeye Fan. Go check him out and have a choice conversation with the man. Not a myth, certainly a legend, the Intergalactic Buckeye Fan. ChoiceConversations.com. Hit him up at ChoiceConvo on Twitter. You can check me out on Twitter as well, at Andy's Wired. It's also brought to you by Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. It's not clean until it's Christy Clean. Be sure to visit her Facebook page at Christie's Cleaning Services, LLC. And it's also brought to you by Columbus Wired for your fill of Central Ohio sports and beyond. Be sure to check us out at columbuswired.net. So, sir, there you have it. 2017's in the books, and let's leave them like we always do. OH!
I-O!
Go Bucks!